Well, trying to finish up the electrical for the wingtip lights. So I have the strobes, which are the strobes that go into the wingtips, and then the landing taxi lights. I actually already did the strobes, and then I thought maybe I should document it in case there's something useful on it. So I'm on the last one, so I'm learned a lot of this from the Stein website or their videos, and this is how I did it. It seems to work and might be helpful for someone. So I take a razor blade, single edge, which is about 1.5 inches. Seems to be a good length. Use that as a guidance. Just slightly run it around the end. This is if you want to take the shielding off, okay? You can kind of see it breaks it. So, and then don't cut your finger, but kind of do the same thing. So then you have the shielding. Oh, by the way, this is 22 gauge 3 conductor wire plus the shielding. And the way you get rid of that is you push it down like that. Kind of makes a little thing like that. And then you snip off. Go around it, just snip it off. Any of the loops that you see. And you can see you can pretty much pull it apart. Missed a couple. And you can get rid of this guy too. And that's basically where I'm at with this one. And what I did is I bought this kit, which has the watertight heat shrink on it, but I didn't actually end up using these ones, and then putting my own 22 gauge wire in. So I'll show you how that works. A little bit extra. So I went out and I bought a whole bunch of different crimpers for the actual, well, I had some, might try to buy some fancier ones. Okay, so you strip that back, then you flatten this out. You put this on with the blue, the darker ring going onto the insulation. Oh, I'm sure there's a bunch of them out there. I use this Dymo labeler, and I think after a couple of trials, I get the 3/8 inch heat shrink with 1/4 inch writing on it. That gives you this result for what it's worth. But back to this is basically running the ground out of the shield. So I'll spread these guys out. Make sure there's no long stragglers in there. And line that up with that. And inside here, if you're not familiar with it, there's a solder slug that's a silver ring. Just make sure it covers all that. And then you hit it with a heat gun. If you like the heat gun, let it warm up on the high setting. This is just a Home Depot Wagner one. I don't even know how many watts it is, but hot enough. And we'll melt that. You'll see how the slug melts. Kind of get it from a couple of sides. You want to get it so it really starts to flow over all of the copper that's in there. See how it's like kind of float all around there. And then alright, so I cut all those to length, and I also wanted to mention I bought that kit because it had this type of connector in it to allow me to differentiate between the wingtip lights and the landing lights. But I don't know, I had a hell of a time. It's the same pins, but it just they didn't seem to work. So this is the ones that the landing lights came with, and I'm using the same one. Well, I already used the same ones on the wingtip lights, as you can see here, and I'm gonna do the same there. So it'll be the same connector, but that's why I labeled it. All right, now to actually put the connector on, so you're gonna strip these back. Strip probably like a little less than a 1/4 inch. This is the green wire was 20 gauge, by the way, not 22. I think I said 22 earlier. Alright, so I got all those stripped. So that's the supply end. Just like in a house, I put the socket on that end. So you take these things, you bend it out of there, and there's the inner part that goes on the insulation. No, I'm lying. There's the inner part that grabs the actual conductor, and then there's the outer part that goes on the insulation. But these are so long that they always tend to get bunched up. Like I said earlier, I bought a whole bunch of different crimpers trying to just get one that does it neatly. But if you keep them that long with that thin of insulation, they just don't cut right. So grab right never looks neat, and then they have trouble getting them into the actual connector. So I just trim them off. And out of all the fancy ones that I had there, I ended up going back to my good old trusty crappy ones. So that's that inner one. That gives it a nice crimp on that. And that's the outer one. So you can see it's a nice solid crimp. Well, give it the tug test, right? Make sure it doesn't come off. Orange, green, and blue. Alright, so you want them to go in this order. And it really doesn't matter what you do as long as you remember what you did. Sometimes I just slide them in with a pair of needle nose. So one by one you can feel them all click in. Don't want to force anything because they're very delicate little tabs, But there you go. That's that one. All right, I won't bore you. I got to figure out how to get this one. Either I take the light out. What I'm looking at is in here. Either I take the light out and wire it, or try to wire it in there, or try to take the lens out and feed it through the front. Haven't figured that out yet. All right, a few things about the lights. So even though I was talking about going with the fancy Deutsch connector, I ended up just going with the standard Molex. It's what RANS supplied with the wingtip light. Not the wingtip light, but the taxi light, leading edge light. And I didn't want to make it any more complicated than it needs to be. I used these from Stein. The cable I used is 20 gauge 3 conductor, with the shield being my ground. I was told that was okay, so I'm going with that. And I labeled this one there, you can see taxi landing light, and it's also longer. Like, this physically doesn't fit that. What I did try to do is put the power and ground in the same location, that if I don't know, somebody does plug it in backwards, it won't hurt anything. Then I kind of did the same as I did up inside the wing. So I just took a grommet, some safety wire, and then just safety wired it around here. Did the same thing there. So the wiring just kind of floats inside the wing. And that concludes those lights anyway. I still got to do the outside air temperature probe and the heated pitot. Well, I did the outside air temperature probe, and basically I just mounted in the center of this access panel, nothing fancy. This is the Garmin something 59, and I did the same Molex connector on the other side. Sorry I didn't get an image of that, but once the inspection plate went on, I was like, ooh, I got motivated. So I put all the inspection plates on. I know they're gonna have to come off again, but kind of gives it a nice finish look. And that took long enough. I didn't do this side yet, so tomorrow I'm gonna do the heated pitot tube, and I also have to do the plumbing. I probably bought about $400 worth of connectors, all from Stein. And actually, no, that's not true. This is from Stein. These are actually 2 kits I combined into one. Some of these are from my shop. These are left over from Stein. These ones here are the solder tubes that I use. I bought this kit, I think I mentioned it earlier, but I didn't actually like them, so I used the standard Molex ones. They seem to, I don't know, just work better. And I have all these fancy crimpers. These are okay for stripping. I thought these were going to be a lot better than I thought, but I keep going back to my, I don't know, I've been using these things for years, and they seem to work. I get the best crimps with them. This is the thicker, the 0.93, I believe, terminals that I'm going to use for the heavier gauge wire for the pitot heat. All right, that's tomorrow's project. Good night. Last couple of days I've just kind of been futzing around with this, tinkering. I did put all the control surfaces on, and like I said, installed all the inspection plates, make sure I have all the right hardware. This one didn't fit real nice because this comes so close to the skin. So I basically just took one leg off of that. I put a note for myself. I also dropped a washer in there. That's what this note is. So I gotta get a magnet. It's down in there somewhere. Of course, the only part of the wing that doesn't have an inspection plate. Anyway, I got all those on. Happy with that. I put the inspection plates on the left wing as well. And I'm working on the pitot tube. So basically went on Stein's website and ordered all the connectors I need for this. I did end up putting the connector on for the heat itself. Let me see if I can show that a little better. Yeah, there we go. So this is the bend that I kind of came up with, if this makes any sense, with the Garmin tube. So with the Gretz mount in there, you can basically have it so it all ends up right in here. It's serviceable. And the reason I have this nylon tubing tied up like that, because like I said, I'm waiting for the connectors to put it all together, but I wanted it to come around. I'm going to shorten these probably by like 2 inches, so the connections are right in here in the service panel. And then obviously you can plug it in from there as well. So everything's right there. That's what I'm working on. And yeah, the tolerances of all the control surfaces is really nice. This one's probably the tightest, but they're all about 3/16, 1/8 of an inch, 3/16 between the aileron and the flap. So happy about that. And I think next up is the strut assembly. I started to look into that a little bit on getting that squared away, but once that's done, the wing's done, I think. I did have one more small dilemma, and that's with the aileron push rod. So sorry, I had to hold this here, but okay, so the instructions tell you to put a spacer in. It's about 3/4 of an inch that goes on the outbound side. So obviously the wingtip's down there, so this is the outbound side. The problem is on downward deflection, it hits. On upward deflection, it doesn't. But if I put the spacer on the inside, and for this purpose just move this over, it's fine all the way up. Well, if the spacer was in there, that's all the way up, it actually wouldn't hit. And I know it doesn't deflect down as much as it deflects up. And I kind of just did a measurement for my own curiosity. I'm sure it's in the book somewhere. But I got a little less than 15 inches downward, 15 degrees downward deflection with, this being neutral, and a little over 30 degrees, like 32 degrees upward deflection. But obviously that spacer, the nuts, the washers, everything's a pain in the butt to put in. And yeah, so if anybody has any insight on where that spacer goes, or if somebody said I just need to cut that inside there, except that's actually means the spar and the my gap seal. So anyway, one more thing to ponder, try and figure out. Well, here's what I did. I cut that. Let's see if we can show this. I don't know if I can see it here, but I cut that spacer in half, and even though the instructions say it's supposed to be on the outboard side, sorry, doing it by feel, I put it on the inboard side. And so this is about 15 degree, right, so I don't know if you can see, but inside there, this is neutral. If you look at the, where the wingtips, the aileron is in relation to the wingtip, and then this would be about 15 degree downward deflection. And if you push it all the way down, it does hit, but nowhere as bad as if you have the spacer on the outside. And then hard to tell, but this is about 30 degrees upward deflection. And it just, I don't know, to me it just makes more sense to put the spacer on the inside. I am still confused on that, but that adds to the confusion because I'm also dealing with the flap handle. So here the movement of the push rod is fine, but the problem that I'm running into is that this bolt looks like it's too long. This is the AN3 bolt that it calls for. It's an inch long, a lot of extra threads exposed. and the cutout in the gap seals is too small. So even if this is actually supposed to be reversed, like, you know, according to the manual, the head is supposed to be on the outbound side, but I changed it to see if it would fit. But if you retract the flaps, it pushes on the gap seal. So I put a note out there on the Facebook forum, and people are saying just to cut the gap seals. Haven't done that yet, but looks like I'm going to do a shorter bolt. Some people are even talking about a cotter pin bolt and then extending this onto here, but I don't know when I'll get to that. I think I'm going to finish this video, and if I find out something, yeah, same. This is the way it's supposed to be. So this is my other wing with the bolt, but you can clearly see that it just decided to actually crease the cap seal a little bit, which is annoying. But yeah, might have to do some mods there. Anyway, I tried to get this video done. Thank you for watching it. Gonna do a little conclusion there. Thank you. Happy building. Merry Christmas.